Ages ago, legend says Ban Conobar took a wife of a beautiful young woman who harbored a secret talent for magic, Flemeth of Highever. And for a time they lived happily, until the arrival of a young poet, Oisin, who captured the lady's heart with his verse. When they fell in love, they turned to the chastened tribes for help and hid from Conobar's wrath in the wilds. Until word came to them that Conobar lay dying. His last wish was to see Flemeth's face one final time. The lovers returned, but it was a trap. Conobar killed Oisin and imprisoned Flemeth in the highest tower of the castle. In grief and rage, Flemeth worked on a spell to summon a spirit into this world to wreak vengeance upon her husband. Vengeance she received, but not as she planned. The spirit took possession of her, turning Flemeth into an abomination, a twisted, maddened creature. She slaughtered Conobar and all his men and fled back into the wilds. That vengeful entity is what we know as Mythal, the all-mother of the elven pantheon from ancient Thedas, the goddess of justice, the best of the gods, clinging on to Flemeth in order to exact her vengeance on those who betrayed her before the veil was even complete. So now that you're up to speed on how Flemeth became who she is, it turns out she's been lying to us since the beginning. Not surprising, but here's why. Descendant of Andraste. I believe it is vital for us to strive to discover her bloodline origin. Now, I could tell you that Andraste is actually Flemeth because they have similar stories, but there's also an issue. Because of the relationship with Andraste and the Maker, she isn't originally Flemeth, because I cannot establish that the Maker is Mythal or any other spirit. I primarily blame BioWare for this because the developers decided not to prove the Maker's existence. Regardless, it's a shame because there are so many parallels between the betrayal of men and the birth of daughters. But speaking of daughters, Andraste had two daughters. They're named Ibris and Vivial. Ibris partnered and had children young but was physically weak. She died of plague in her late 20s. Her daughter, Alivemar, married young, but died in an accident during the voyage to Denerim, seizing an end to that part of Andraste's bloodline according to World of Thedas Volume 2. So unfortunately, Ibris's descendants did not exist in the end, but the younger daughter, Vivial, was more controversial. A strong-headed woman who defied her family by falling in love with a mage from Tevinter, Regulon. Vivial and Regulon went into self-imposed exile as the Exalted March began, and into hiding following Andraste's betrayal and murder. What became of Vivial and her descendants is largely unknown for one primary reason. She had only daughters. Each of those daughters only had daughters. They married into other families and took on other names, and in the chaos of the Second Blight, all traces of survivors from Andraste were lost. Andraste's true bloodline, if it exists, lies solely on the descendants of Vivial. So, according to the Chastened Wilders, Vivial is most likely the descendant of Flemeth. This would also explain why most of Flemeth's daughters already have Avar and Tavine's magical affinity. In any case, it does seem strange to me that they would emphasize that Vivial had daughters exclusively. So it's no surprise that we can't trace many of her names because she eventually married onto families clinging the name lineage across the ages. And now, finally, Flemeth, beginning her sorrowful narrative and perhaps a little vengeance against men along the way. Flemeth speaks the calling. It's no secret that Flemeth has plans for the Blight. After all, she's a big aid in Dragon Age Origins, allowing us to bring her daughter along in our quest to kill the Archdemon, only to have us end up using Morrigan for her dark ritual plot. Flemeth's schemes were all designed to profit just her, but does she know what caused the Blight? In my Creepy Secrets video, I mentioned that the Will of Sorrow's voices backwards explains that Mythal speaks the calling. Of course, the voices by themselves are extremely creepy, but it's indisputable that the audio says she's fallen the calling, the calling. If Flemeth was in charge of the calling, it would really shake up the Dragon Age series, including how the next game might play out. If a witch with an elven goddess spirit is truly behind a horrific blight that infected all of Thedas, the Wardens and the Darkspawn may have some explaining to do. Sadly, that is just only a theory, but if we delve into this theory even deeper, it might explain why Flemeth truly needs old god souls. Ever watched Harry Potter? Then you can see where I'm going with this. Flemeth, or Mythal, could be inviting the Darkspawn through the calling to blight the old gods in order to reclaim her reign and power. Or, like Voldemort, Mythal's Horcrux is the souls of the old gods. And who knows what else? Maybe Mythal's possesses more Horcruxes than just the archdemons, but based on what we know about Morrigan, the dark ritual must have been practiced by Flemeth's daughters since the beginning of the Blights on Thedas. This could also possibly explain why Andraste was born so soon after the first archdemon was slain. But who knows? This hypothesis is quite powerful, and I would not be shocked if Flemeth is entirely manipulating and behind the Blight in order to reclaim Mythal's full power over the Evaneris. And I'm sure Solus is aware of this as well with his dislike for wardens. Of course, how BioWare closes up this story for Dragon Age Dreadwolf is entirely up to them. Regardless, someone is behind the calling, and many fans have a feeling that it's Mythal. Controlling heroes. Flemeth is recognized for assisting many heroes, yet few of them correspond to her living time period. For example, she's born in the Tower's Age but aided people in the Divine Age. She helped Dane from the legend of Dane and the werewolves. The legend tells about Dane chasing a rare white heart through a woodland, and after he kills it, a werewolf approaches him and demands money for the heart, which had been slain in the Pax woods. Surrounded by wolves, Dane had no alternative but to strike a deal in which the werewolf would live as Dane, and Dane would live as the werewolf for a year and a day. Flemeth was engaged in this mythology, but according to World of Thedas Volume 2, where is it? There is no codex record that describes how Flemeth is connected to this narrative. So let's perform a little fast math. Hafter is said to be the son of this legendary Dane. Hafter fought in the second Blight between the Alamari, which is known to be in 140 Divine. Hence, I believe Hafter is to be between the ages of 18 to 25, putting him born between 115 and 122 Divine. If Dane is his father, Dane would travel as far back into the ancient time frame as Andraste's lifespan. Flemeth would have to be around 315 years old before her existence was documented in the Tower's Age. So if she lived throughout the Divine Age, it would mean that after every Blight, Flemeth can be controlling certain heroes in their tales and aiding them along the way, of course, for her own benefit. According to the Stolen Throne, while fleeing Orlesian allies, Prince Merrick and Loghain are captured by the Dalish, who hand them over to the Asha Belenar, or Flemeth. In exchange for leading them out of the wilds, she requests that Merrick make a promise to her that he may not share that knowledge with anyone. She also warns Merrick that a Blight could strike Ferelden one day, which we know as the 5th Blight, and gives him a cryptic warning regarding Loghain: keep him near and he will betray you, each time worse than the last. And in The Calling, which takes place 14 years later, Flemeth's comments motivate Merrick, now king of Ferelden, to join the Grey Wardens in their journey into the Deep Roads. He eventually repeats the remarks of Flemeth to Loghain, who disagrees with them and suspects she is manipulating them. And if you played all 3 Dragon Age games, you'll know that Flemeth assists all of the protagonists throughout their stories, whether it's offering guidance, as she seems to do well, or saving us for a plan we don't yet know about. And I somewhat agree with Loghain in that Flemeth must be influencing all of these heroes for her own needs. And these aims are ultimately from Mythal, which brings us to the next following topic: Morrigan's danger. Throughout Dragon Age Origins, Morrigan's suspicions about her mother prove to be valid. After all, it's been established that Flemeth is virtually immortal after the events of each game we play. That's where Morrigan's danger comes in. Morrigan obtained Flemeth's grimoire, which indicated that she extended her life by possessing the bodies of her daughters. Morrigan was opposed to this and planned with the Warden to murder her before Flemeth could inhabit her body. However, whether the hero of Ferelden murdered Flemeth or not, she remains alive in Dragon Age 2. She transferred a small portion of herself inside an amulet, which then Hawke transported to Kirkwall. And according to the comic Silent Grove, Yavanna, Flemeth's daughter, thought Flemeth's possession was a gift, and Morrigan was being pretty foolish to not recognize this. What Yavanna was attempting to demonstrate was that Morrigan has many misconceptions about Flemeth that have been proven to be completely false. Mythal is apparently not a demon, but rather a powerful elven goddess, and to bestow her power is a gift, something that Morrigan has been trained and searching for since she left the Kokari wilds. While Morrigan rejects Flemeth's purpose for her, Flemeth's previous daughters have proved to be willing to inherit Mythal's power throughout the ages. So, unlike possession, one must be willing to absorb Mythal's power, or so it seems. And even though we saw one Flemeth do something with and to Fen Harel, we've also seen that Flemeth can stow away a piece of herself and smuggle it safely as a backup plan in case someone fails to fulfill her plan of destruction, hence her effective use of mortality itself. And as much as I want to trust Flemeth in all she says and does, she's lying, and we know that. No matter what happens, Mythal appears to be getting her way over all of these millennia since the Veil was established. And until her mission has been fulfilled, however sinister that may be, Mythal is making sure that she has many variations of her essence in order to come out alive at the end of it all, whatever the cost. So Morrigan's peril might potentially be her saving grace in the next Dragon Age game. And this whole narrative of Mythal, the goddess of justice, reminds me how true justice really operates. Justice is served by playing the long game, and that has been shown throughout all of these games against any foe we've ever faced or what we've seen. But with that, we are going to wrap up. Turns out Flemeth was really lying to us. Do you think Flemeth will be back in the next game, or do you think she's gone for good? Tell me why in the comments down below, and if you don't comment, I will summon Flemeth underneath your bed. Or maybe some of y'all are into that. Never mind. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.